I remember that day vividly. Grandma walked in and asked, "What are you drawing?" I looked up from the piece of paper I had been working on. With a red pencil in my hand, I had been sketching the birthday cake we shared together a few months ago. It wasn't anything special, just a simple cake with a glossy red strawberry on top. But it was our cake, the one we enjoyed together, and I felt proud of it. Grandma smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling. "You're like a professional artist," she said, patting my head. I closed my eyes, enjoying the warmth of her hand. Her kindness always made me feel like I mattered. Life at home, however, was far from the warmth I felt at Grandma's house. My parents were distant, and my younger sister, Flora, always seemed to be the center of attention. Everyone adored her. She was beautiful, smart, and charming. In contrast, I felt like I could never measure up. "Why can't you be more like Flora?" they would often ask. Those words hurt, and slowly I started to feel invisible, like I didn't exist in their eyes. The love I longed for seemed to slip further away, and I realized I was just a shadow in the background of their lives. The only place I felt truly loved was at Grandma's. The more I grew, the clearer it became that my parents favored Flora. They showered her with praise and affection, while I was left to fend for myself. I tried my hardest at school, but no matter what I did, it was never enough. My accomplishments were overshadowed by Flora's effortless achievements. When something went wrong, I was always blamed. A broken dish? My fault. Missing money? My fault. No matter how hard I tried, I was always the villain in my family's eyes. The injustice made me bitter, but I found solace in the simple things, like drawing and writing, especially when Grandma praised me. Grandma's love was the only thing that kept me going. When I was sent to my room for something I didn't do, she would come to comfort me. "You are special just the way you are," she would say. Her words made me feel like I mattered, like I had worth. One day, as I was doodling on the back of a flyer, Grandma saw my drawing and praised it. She even gifted me a set of high-quality drawing supplies for my birthday. It was the only birthday present I ever received that felt genuine. Grandma believed in me when no one else did, and that meant the world to me. As I grew older, the gap between me and my family grew wider. I moved in with Grandma after my parents told me they couldn't afford my school fees, claiming it was because Flora needed to take entrance exams. The truth was clear. They didn't care about my future. I felt betrayed and abandoned. But Grandma, who had always been there for me, insisted that I live with her and continue my studies. She paid for my school fees, despite her own limited resources. I wanted to refuse, to not be a burden, but seeing her tears made me realize I couldn't turn her down. I moved into Grandma's house and began going to high school at night while working part-time during the day. It wasn't easy, but for the first time I felt like I was in control of my life. Grandma didn't want me to work, but I insisted. I wanted to be independent, to show that I could take care of myself. My parents hadn't cared about my future, but Grandma did. She always supported me, always encouraged me. Even when everything else seemed bleak, her love was my constant. Her belief in me gave me the strength to keep moving forward. After high school, I moved into a small apartment and started working as an office clerk at a nearby company. My parents never visited, and I never heard from them again. At first it hurt. I had hoped that one day they might reach out, but I came to accept that I wasn't a part of their lives anymore. Then, one day, I received a letter from Flora. It was an invitation to her wedding. The moment I saw her name, a mix of emotions flooded me. I hadn't spoken to Flora in years. Why was she reaching out now? I wasn't sure what to do. I sat there, staring at the invitation in my hands. Part of me didn't want to go. After everything that had happened, I didn't think I could face my family again. But deep down, I knew I had to go. Flora was my sister after all. If I didn't show up, it might raise suspicions. I was the only sister she had, and this might be my last chance to heal any wounds between us. The thought of seeing my parents again made my stomach churn, but I couldn't ignore the invitation. I decided I would attend, even if it meant facing the people who had hurt me the most. On the day of the wedding, I arrived early, the nervousness building in my chest. The venue was a grand building, designed to resemble a fairy tale castle. It looked perfect, almost too perfect. As I stepped inside, I saw my parents and Flora. She looked stunning in her wedding gown, but there was something cold in her smile when she saw me. My mother barely acknowledged me, and my father looked at me as if I were a ghost. "What are you doing here?" my mother sneered. My heart sank. I had hoped for a warm welcome, but it seemed I was still the outsider. Flora's cold smile twisted into something more mocking. "See, Mom? I told you she would show up," she said. I was taken aback. The words stung, but I didn't show it. It was clear that my sister hadn't expected me to actually come. My mother joined in, rolling her eyes. "You really haven't changed, have you?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. My father, who rarely spoke to me, simply stared in silence. It was as if I was still the invisible daughter in their eyes, and I was beginning to realize that nothing had changed. They still saw me as a disappointment. When I asked Flora if she had sent the invitation, her response was cold and calculated. "Yes, I invited you, but I didn't think you would come," she said, her words cutting deep. It was just an invitation out of obligation. My chest tightened. I had hoped for something more, some sign that she cared, but all I received was this cruel indifference. "What do you want me to do? Pretend everything is fine?" I asked. Flora's eyes narrowed. "No, Nadine. I want you to realize that you don't belong here." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. As Flora's words sank in, I felt the ground beneath me shift. I had been holding on to the hope that this wedding might be a chance for reconciliation. But it was all just a lie. Flora had not only ignored me, but she had also started telling people that I was dead. The shock of hearing that took the wind out of me. How could she lie about me so easily? The room seemed to spin as I tried to process what she had just said. My own sister had erased me from existence. I couldn't believe it. My heart raced as I ran out of the venue, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't breathe. The world felt like it was crumbling around me. My hands shook as I fumbled with my car keys. But just as I was about to give up, my phone buzzed. It was a message from one of my friends. They had seen my post about attending the wedding, and their words of encouragement flooded my mind. "You are not worthless, Nadine," the message read. "You have worth. You matter." It was like a lifeline, pulling me out of the dark place I had been drowning in. After reading the messages, something inside me shifted. I couldn't let my family's lies define me. I wiped away my tears, took a deep breath, and returned to the wedding venue. The room was silent when I walked back in. All eyes were on me. My parents and Flora stood frozen in shock. I stood tall and declared, "I am Nadine, the bride's sister. I am not dead." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, but it was the truth. I wasn't going to let their lies stand. I wasn't going to let them control my story any longer. As I spoke, the room was filled with disbelief. My parents tried to cover their shock, but I could see the fear in their eyes. Flora rushed to try and stop me, but I raised my voice louder. "You lied to everyone. You made them believe I was dead. But I'm here. I'm alive." I looked around the room, feeling the weight of their stares. It was a moment I would never forget. My sister's face turned pale, and my parents stood frozen in place. The truth was out, and there was no going back for them. The chaos in the room grew louder, but I was no longer afraid. Grandma, who had been watching from the side, rushed to my side, her face full of relief. She had always believed in me, even when no one else did. As she grasped my hand, I knew that despite everything, I wasn't alone. My family might have tried to erase me, but I had the strength to stand up for myself. With Grandma by my side, I walked out of that venue, leaving behind a family that no longer mattered. They had no power over me anymore,